Oh, I've changed, therefore all of you need to change.
It ceases to become work.
I was not a happy motherfucker. I was an angry dude.
Should we just surrender to this? Is this the universe now telling us that?
You probably gotta get frustrated if I only give you 5 minutes to meditate.
But I don't know of another way to kind of express that.
What do you think the frequency of wealth is? Welcome to the Frequency of Wealth podcast, where we try to interview people who use meditation as a tool for business, and we try to identify how spiritual work and meditations help them get competitive edge in business. And today we have a very special guest, my good friend, my tennis partner, my business partner, Vincenzo Verdino. Vincenzo, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and looks like we've made progress since last podcast because our guest is wearing shoes today.
We actually did a meditation this morning, G and I told him I was coming in here, and he said, you should take your shoes off to keep the joke going.
That's funny.
But I opted not to.
Let's start from the very beginning. Can you basically tell us your origins, where you grew up?
Yeah, so origins, all four of my grandparents were born to the same town in Sicily. So originally Italian, grew up spending summers in Sicily, then lived in Italy for about 2 years. So a big part of my background and kind of what shaped who I am is certainly Italian and being a family all being from Italy. Growing up, I grew up in the Catskill Mountains of upstate New York, and one of my first experiences with meditation and visualization was in athletics. One of my now mentors and coaches earlier on, Jack Carter is his name. He was an Olympic caliber decathlete, and he was a very spiritual guy. He started out as a coach. One of the first things that he did, and he was my pole vaulting coach, which is a very technical event. And it's very much, a lot of it is kind of in your mind, in your head. You have to get over, this fear that you may have of going upside down on a pole, and you're sprinting as fast as you can towards this little box, and you're planting a pole that's 15 to 16 feet long, and just as a kid you're hoping almost for the best. And so we started out there with him visualizing and going through lots of visualization exercises. And at the time we never called it, or was never talked about as meditation or meditating, but that in getting into meditation now, I often reflect back, and those really were great training exercises, because even when I was going through and being an athlete and going through active competitions and during that period, the night before, I would close my eyes, lay in bed, and visualize myself going over the bar. And it's you're visualizing yourself achieving something before it even happens, and then materializing that. And when you believe it and you have the belief systems, it's your body follows. And a lot of with pole vaulting, it happens so quickly that it's just, you don't even think about it. It's your mind has already trained your body to do those things. It happens so quickly in a split second. And so much of the activity that's done, a lot of it is mental. It's a very mental sport.
Well, you would think as such energy and physically intensive sport like pole vaulting would be just a lot of physical exercise, but what you're saying is that it's more of a mental game than a physical act.
100%. And it is very physically challenging, but someone can be just as physical and can be just as fast or just as strong. The two people can be the same, but if one has this mental aptitude and able to train their mind, they will be light years ahead of anyone else.
So it's almost like you have to see yourself there. You have to become that version of you who already accomplished that. Feel all the sensations, feel all the emotions, have the visual matrix of possibility in your head before the event can actually happen.
And it's so funny, from back then when I think about the exercises that my coach was having me do, it was even, okay, jump, clear the bar. How high over the bar are you? Feel yourself coming down, and then land on the mats, and then picture yourself celebrating. And it's, I didn't connect the dots until, 20, 30 years later, when now I'm going through meditation. I was like, wow, that was the same thing I was doing back then, which the exercises that you're doing now.
So you now started applying those practices in your daily life, personal life, and business.
Correct.
What kind of things do you visualize on or mentally rehearse before they happen?
As little as the things you're doing on a day-to-day. So I think if you take a step back, it's a lot of the things that you're learning through, doing the meditations, I think, is one facet of it. And then the other facet of it is, as you're going through life day to day, how are you retraining your mind on that person that you are, you want to be, but that in your mind you've become. And so I think there's, two components to it: the visualization side, how you're really, we talk about it, sometimes you and I, the destination upon arrival. You're already at some place before you've taken off. So I think that's, if you're compartmentalizing bringing spirituality into business or into life, then the one side is really the visualization in my mind and the meditation. And then when you're not doing that action of meditating physically, focusing on that, then on the day-to-day side of it, what are you doing that is reinforcing that when you're in, the three-dimensional reality that we're in right now?
I assume growing up in an Italian family, you probably had a big influence from Roman Catholic Church. Was the spirituality or religion or Christianity a big part of your life growing up?
Yeah, very, very much so. So Italy, 20 years ago when I was growing up, was probably 98% Roman Catholic as far as the country. So that's all you knew, and all my family there knew. Growing up, I was an altar boy, went through the whole steps of that. And I think Western religion can be looked at, in two different ways also. One is the cultural side of it, where my parents, my grandparents grew up this way, and with that comes the traditions of the holidays we celebrate and the things we do. And I think that's one component that all of Italy, still to this day, the majority of it has those traditions. And then the other component of it is the religion side of it, which is, really the basis of the church. And I think the religion side of it certainly has, dissipated for a lot of Italy. And maybe in the U.S., there certainly has been a resurgence, especially where we live in the Sun Belt, the South, where even in the younger generations, there's been more of, the conservative side of it. So I think there's two sides, two dynamics. I was having a conversation with a friend of ours that as well, who's Jewish, from the Jewish faith. And yesterday was Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish holiday, for Jewish New Year, and he was celebrating it, but at the same time saying, I'm really not that religious, but as a part of the traditions and part of more of a cultural thing. So for me, it certainly has become cultural, although I was raised on the religious side.
So have you experienced any friction with the family dynamics as you were kind of moving away from traditional religion practices and the guide of how to live, and having more independent religion of your own, where basically believe that you create your own reality through manifestations, visualizations, you experience the end results before they even happen, and those type of spiritual practices that are different from traditional Roman Catholic Church practices.
So it's very hard to have those conversations with individuals that may not have been exposed to other ideas. We've talked about lots of great books. Conversations with God is one. And there are lots of books that open your mind to other possibilities or question things that in religion, you turn off that side of the brain to question something. So I think it's hard to have conversations with people about that if they're not open to entertaining those questions. So I don't think I've gone down that road with a lot of people. And then within the family, I do agree with the idea, and I wrestle with this. I should say I wrestle a little bit with young kids. How do you expose kids to something like this? And is it a good idea for them to be exposed to it as almost history, and being exposed to religion and being taught it as, this is a cultural thing and this is a way of life, the way I was. And then ensuring that they get exposed to all things, including the spiritual side, as they get older, and then having them decide. So that I wrestle with kind of back and forth. What is the right thing with having, young kids and a significant other that may not be as bought in to the spiritual side as yet. And so I think that's you and I can talk about that offline as well.
What I found for me, it's best not to try to convince them, hey, here is something you should do, this is what I believe in, and you should do the same thing. It's more by just being yourself and do what works for you, and have them question you, like, hey, I see changes, like I see changes in your net worth, I see changes in your quality of life, I see changes in you, and let them inquire and question it. And well, if you're interested, this is what I'm doing, instead of coming back from a retreat and like thinking like, oh, I've changed, therefore all of you need to change, like you need to go there. I know I've done it to other people, that's why I can joke about it. So did you use these visualization practices that you used in sports throughout college?
Yeah. So I did sports in college, so as well, throughout there doing the same kind of techniques.
And you went to Georgetown, right?
That's right.
Yes, which is an Ivy League school.
It's not an Ivy League school. Georgetown, Duke, Stanford are some of the kind of schools that are not Ivy League, but that are kind of considered to be good academic.
Yeah. And then you studied political science while
right.
there, right? So when a lot of people think Georgetown, political science major, and commercial real estate are kind of two things that don't go hand in hand. Right now you work in the commercial real estate field along with me. That's how we became close friends. We worked together. But how did that come about, the transition from one to another?
So from political science was something that I studied at Georgetown because it had such a great program, and it was a great place to do it. Bill Clinton was an alumni, and he was president at the time. So it was a great thing to study when not knowing what you really wanted to do at the age of 18. From there, how I got to commercial real estate, I was doing trade finance at the time, and happened to be playing tennis with a buddy of mine that I play with all the time. And the next thing I know, that buddy, the last time we had been playing tennis together about a month earlier, was up drove up in a Mitsubishi SUV, and then a month later he drives up in a Maserati, and I said, "Man, what is going on?" And that person was Nikita, of course, and the market had just begun to turn, and he had convinced me that man, now is a great time to get into commercial real estate, and so I did, and that was back in 2012, I believe. And since then, we've worked under the same roof, under the same office since then. And it's been awesome. It's been great.
Yeah, what a good friend you had. Yeah, you should really thank him.
Yeah, I think I have many times in different ways. Yeah.
Thank you. The purpose kind of this podcast is to interview people who were able to create millions and tens of millions of dollars, significant wealth, but using not just working harder, but using kind of a quantum hacks to manifest wealth and create wealth at accelerated speeds that otherwise would take many years and decades to build. You have been able to accumulate significant wealth. And how was that just a lot of hard work, or how did your practices of visualization that you learned during your vaulting years, how is it other spiritual practices of faith play a role in you building your family wealth?
Yeah, so one, I think surrounding yourselves with great people. I mean, having a partner like yourself and our other, two partners that we have really help, tremendously. Having that support and having that bouncing ideas off each other, in our industry, creativity really can put you ahead. You look at a deal, 10 people will look at the same deal, and you have one person that looks at it in a different angle, and that could be, a multi-million-dollar idea. So I think I've been fortunate to be around, great partners. I think luck I think is an easy thing to say. Plays a role. We like to think is trying to be a little humble, and the idea of it's following a lot of these great practitioners out there and these great teachers. Outside of just the spiritual field, a guy like Tony Robbins, who we've been to his seminars before, there are lots of people like that the premise of their work is a little more business driven, and then others, the foundation of their work may be a little bit more spiritual. And being able to take as much of that as you can and apply it to your life. And you say this podcast about how can you make spirituality or meditation really focus on the business. And for me, what I've always talked about is that our lives and what we do in business is really like fun. I don't call it work, right? People say I'm going to the office, I'm going to work. And I just say I'm going to, I'm going to the office, but I'm not working. In my mind, it's not like, I gotta go to work. When you're doing what you do with the people that you love and it's fun, in your mind it's fun, it ceases to become work. The definition of work is like something that is arduous or strenuous, and I don't feel that way at our office and work majority of the time.
Yeah. Do you know that I've started calling instead of our workplace, I started calling it Joy Place.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I go to my Joy Place.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So speaking of Tony Robbins, so I think he's more focused. His practices on activating your peak state, which is essentially activating your energy flow in the body. Right. He's more about physiological changes in your body can lead to material results. Right. So even your posture. And the stuff you do, like walking on coals or standing on nails, that activates energy flow in your body. Because if it's not flowing in your life, it's probably because it's not flowing in your body. And if it's not flowing in your body, it's probably not going to flow in your life. So how do you interpret energy? Like right now you work and you started CityPlat with two other co-founders, right? So you have, you're one of the co-founders of CityPlat, and now you have essentially three partners. How do you navigate energies? Because they have different personalities, different skill sets. How do you navigate the energy between those people, and are those energies aligned or are they misaligned?
So I'm going to go back to luck, I think, on this at the beginning. I think luck being it was not an intentional thought on that. There wasn't much thought at the time towards that and ensuring that kind of energies in that standpoint. I think we happen to be people with great energy as far as you feel positive, and that's why we strive to go to some of these types of retreats or read these types of books with really about positivity and making yourself a better version of yourself. So I think by the three of us at that time really having those things in common, as a result, our energies in general were all pretty aligned, and having similar visions on what we were looking to do in business did that. I think personality traits, even you and I, we've talked about that a lot, and it's come up where we're very different in many ways from a personality standpoint. And in some ways that's really helped us a lot, where we would, go back and forth from a personality. And I think outside of the spiritual realm, we use those words interchangeably. And if you're looking at it from a pure energy flow, it may be, look differently. You're really hyper focusing on one type of thing as opposed to, personalities and how people interact, or if they're positive and negative, as opposed to the energy or the frequency that they're calibrating at.
So it sounds like energy, being aligned on energy with your business partners, so people you do business with, is more important than their personalities or their backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you think those things are less important as long as you have an alignment of frequencies. How do you determine if it's the person has the right energy? Is it the inner feeling, or is it certain ways, the way they look, or what they say? How can you tell if the person has the right energy for you?
It's typically if they have an accent, then they have terrible energy. I'm
Yeah.
joking. I think it certainly is more of, the feeling that you have with somebody, the energy list. A lot of that is, you're calibrating at extremely high frequency. Love, of course, is the highest frequency. And so the feeling or the intent that somebody is putting out there, if what they're doing and the intentions that they have are full of love, which typically, runs in with positivity, falls along that, then that is at a, calibrating at a higher frequency.
So it sounds like it's what the intention and what is the person's heart is behind what they're doing. Is it coming from a good place?
Correct.
So right now in your business, day-to-day business decisions and activity, how do you balance between looking at financial analysis versus gut feeling or intuition?
So I think we internally, so aside from just what my kind of gut feeling is, I think internally we've started having more conversations at CityPlat within the partnership that take into account or take into effect some of the spiritual sides of things. If something happens to us, and before we may get frustrated with it, and rather than just saying, well, I mean, things happen, it is what it is. It's more of, well, is this, do we surrender to what just happened? And is that, the universe telling us something, and kind of looking at it from that standpoint, rather than getting frustrated with it, right? And, if I heard myself saying this, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, like, what are you talking about? The universe? Like, dude.
Surrendering to the universe, yeah.
Yeah, like that. Even the verbiage sounds, so...
Can you give me a recent example of actual deal? Or you went maybe where you use more spiritual practice to make a decision? Or maybe you use the concept of surrendering?
So, I mean, the one real life example was, with us looking to open to start a fund as opposed to raising capital traditionally the way we have, doing business as usual. There was an event that happened where the group that we were going to use, that we had already paid, $35,000, had wired them, funds to go ahead and begin that process. And something came about, and the money is essentially being refunded back to us. And, we're looking at each other like, okay, we've been wrestling with the idea back and forth for the last 6 months, whether we should move forward or not. Should we just surrender to this? Is this the universe now telling us that, this just is not a good idea?
Yeah,
you should have taken
money.
the other.
Here, take it back.
Yeah.
That's a great example. And I know you recently, one of your bigger acquisitions have been the old Kmart on Western Boulevard. And was it purely financial modeling, analytical thought, or because it was kind of like a risky deal? You buy in fully vacant, 8-figure retail properties in the market that's not very lender friendly to those type of properties. It was a pretty heavy lift. So, what made you to move? Why did you make a decision to move forward with it?
This was more of a gut, I would say. One of the partners took a look at the deal and saw it as a small bay flex opportunity. One of the partners is the other person sitting in a chair across from me. We looked at it and it made so much sense just from a high level. This is amazing. This is incredible. And we went ahead and got it under contract. After running the numbers and after looking at it, we realized it just didn't make sense as small bay flex. But we already had jumped in. And when we were looking at it as small bay flex and realized it wasn't, immediately we pivoted and looked at it as a retail site. And now, we're ecstatic at what we have as a product, as a project, and a future potential project. And it could be, one of the greatest projects that, we've done, at least to date. And we would have never gone under contract had we looked at it as a retail site to begin with, because we're just not really retail developers. We weren't looking at retail. We were only looking at small bay flex.
So it sounds like it was purely mathematical calculations. There was no spiritual or meditative or like inner knowing practices involved behind the decision.
I would say it was kind of, we were pushed, and it was our gut to move forward with it. We thought it was great. And had we not moved forward with it, thinking of it as, as small bay, then we wouldn't have purchased it as retail. So it allowed us to get it under contract. While it was under contract, we were able to, we made it
pivot
work.
direction. So it sounds like it was pure luck.
Could be.
Do you believe in luck?
I believe in the phrase of luck, but I don't believe that it is purely for no happenstance. The luck is usually something behind it that is a lot more than luck. So
you do believe you create your own luck?
Yes.
So you are the creator of your own reality.
Correct.
And do you believe that you can change your reality at any given point in time?
Yes, absolutely.
There is a practical tool. How do you go about changing your reality on a daily basis?
So I'm sure there are lots of them. Not lots of them. There are probably others, is what I should say. For me, the most tangible that I know of or have been exposed to is very intentional, specific meditation. And being exposed to that, thanks to you, I joined I went on a Joe Dispenza retreat, and his form, and there are others where it's a guided meditation, is easier for somebody to be able to step into the meditation for the first time. And within those, there are some meditations that are very much hyper-focused on what we're speaking of right now, which is looking at, future reality and how that could be, changed.
How it can be changed or manipulated or shifted.
Correct.
And you were a big skeptic before that, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Now, I wouldn't say a big skeptic, but skeptical of that extreme, being able to control, having your emotions control what you do. Positivity, reflects, positivity, and that happens to you, is one version of that. And then the other extreme is, going into time-space continuum and really affecting, your reality at a much more drastic way.
I remember you saying to me, I just don't know how to meditate more than I cannot meditate for 5 minutes. And what's your, now that you know how to do it, you probably gonna get frustrated if I only give you 5 minutes to meditate. What's your average meditation? How long does it last?
So my average meditation is based on the time that I'm able to fit into my day, I would say. And I wish it was longer, but 25 to 35 minutes is what I can kind of find. The longer you get into it, the more you really can see out of it. The more it's like warming up as an athlete. It's like you're beginning to warm up, and then eventually you're getting your stride. If you're a runner, after 15, 20 minutes, now you can really open up.
Do you use meditation to more manifest things and visualize like you were describing earlier? Or are you doing it more to find clarity? Such as quieting the noise in the head and having absence of thought?
Yeah, manifesting for the most part is what my focus is, but I feel like as a byproduct, you're quieting the noise as well. It's like the first portion of that meditation is quieting the noise to get into your body, your mind to be a tool to achieve some of the manifesting side.
What do you think the frequency of wealth is? What is that frequency? Is it a certain behavior or pattern? Is it a certain way of thinking?
So what I'm, learning in this, I'd say kind of the spiritual journey is it all goes back to love, right? It all goes back to opening your heart. And before you can really begin to receive, your heart needs to be open. And that sounds so cliche, to say, but I don't know of another way to kind of express that. And most of these, teachers within that discipline, is an overriding theme that they all kind of say is that it's the more you open your heart to be able to receive this knowledge, to be able to be at that point when you can change your, your future, so to speak. So I think that is, that's the biggest. Once you have none of that, negative feeling inside you, inward or outward, then it really opens everything up, and your perspective, the people that calibrated in history at the highest calibration were all guys that spoke of love, Jesus, the Buddha, all of them.
So it sounds like the key to start attracting wealth is first you start with opening your heart, so it's going to be open for receiving, so it's not closed up. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How do you open your heart?
Everybody, it's a little different, but looking inward, which is a lot of meditation and spirituality starts with kind of looking inward to you. What are your each person has their own inner demons, their inner struggles. Sometimes we think that if we don't say something, then it's not a negative. I'm not being negative, but your thoughts are the same, no different, right? If I think these negative things inside about me, about what I can do, then that's no different than me speaking them. So I think it's also, you're looking inward and you're trying, you're working on yourself to be, that version of yourself that you need, and then that you're able to open up your heart.
Sounds like the change starts with you first, instead of before you try to change the outside world or the reality that's on the outside. You first change who you are.
Yeah.
So if you were to give a practical advice to somebody watching, what can they do today or start doing today that can accelerate their path to accumulate financial wealth?
I think we're fortunate enough in the society that we live in now that we have all the knowledge of humanity within our fingertips, right? Our phones are now incredible supercomputers to where they would have been 20 years ago. And so you have access just with YouTube. It's a YouTube channel, and you have access to incredible videos. And if you have this curiosity about spirituality and about meditation and all of any of the topics that we've discussed or that you discuss on this channel, there are teachers and guides that you can begin listening to for free. And I would implore someone to do that, and then find somebody that they know within their circle. And if you want to do that and you put it out there, the answers will come to you.
Okay, so use the knowledge of technology that's accessible at our fingertips to constantly improve themselves.
That's right.
And reinvent a better version of themselves that's more educated, more sophisticated, more literate in some of those fields, such as financial literacy or spiritual literacy.
Whatever it is, that hunger that they have inside them is whatever it is, then the answers are out there, or the tools and education is available to them for free.
If you could travel back in time, what kind of advice would you give to 25-year-old Vincenzo?
Love life more.
You feel like the older version of Vincenzo didn't love life enough?
No, but that's the only thing I think at that age, if you're going to say one thing or you're going to do one thing, it's hard to, process. I think I am incredibly lucky and fortunate human being. And if you would have said, man, what is something you would change about what you did? I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I think having that innocence of that age, not to give them, someone knowledge of making money at that point or beginning meditation, because if I did, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Yeah. So the only thing I would say is just, love your life more. Love life more. And it's, thinking of that. Yeah.
Love
and the Powerball numbers from last week.
love life more, and life is going to love you back.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you chose that as an advice, because one thing unique about you when I met you, and up till still to this day, you're probably the happiest person with the greatest positive, internal optimist, where you're always positive, you're always smiling, and you're always happy no matter what's going on. Because for longest time, until probably 6 years ago, I was not a happy motherfucker. I was an angry dude, right? I was pretty mean and angry person in general. I had success in business just through hard work and perseverance and hustling, but I might have been a financial millionaire, but I was definitely not a spiritual millionaire, right? But you, on the other hand, you always had your heart open, and you always was just a total optimist and had a positive outlook on life, which creates a magnet. That's what people were attracted to you, and that's what drew me to you. Why I wanted to be around you, because you always make other people feel good about themselves and about life. So it's interesting that you chose that you would be in love with life even more than you have been. That's very cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the words. I appreciate it. And I don't know that you were always mad, but you always looked mad because of the look.
That's true. Yeah, I actually always had a good heart, but
Yeah.
to the outside world, I look like an angry person. Any final words for our audience?
I think it's been incredible to watch your growth over the last, from 10 to 15 years, but specifically the last 5 years, to see how much it really has changed you as far as just diving into the spiritual side of things, where you see you see from you what the importance of life, the important things in life that we talk about and that are highlighted on the spiritual side are now being reflected in your actions as well. And you've always said, man, that certain things are more important than business, than money, as far as in life in general. And now it's not just said, but it's part of your life, and it's beautiful to see it. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming in. Absolutely. You've been watching Frequency of Wealth podcast with a special guest, Vincenzo Verdino. If you have any thoughts, please comment them below. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future updates.